So over the past week, I've been doing a lot of research, and I honestly believe the old Pokemon games are returning, or more specifically, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald for this year. And honestly, I think that this is fantastic in a lot of ways. There are so many things that I look at this and I'm like, yeah, this does make sense. We are going to be seeing these games, and the Pokemon Company seems to egging this on. So in this video, I'll be discussing everything that I found throughout my research and how I'll convince you that these games are returning. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so starting everything off, I'm sure you know these very popular three posts right here. You have the one with the Hoenn region and the plushies. This is obviously the Hoenn region. You also have the other one that is clear as day, the Hoenn region, and more unique locations from that. And then you have the one, Take Good Care of Mudkip, which honestly is another pointer to this. Now, of course, you could just be saying, well, this is going to be a remastered anime TV show because you have Brock here and you have Mudkip. But I think it's much different than that, because if you look at Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, those games actually did sell well because they did sell over like 4 million copies. We're not just going to sit here and say, oh, just because they sell well, the Pokemon Company is going to go ahead and re-release these games, because if that was the case, they would have done that years ago. So this time around, for the 30th anniversary, I kept looking and searching, and then I noticed upon. Did you remember that the games are actually in the code of Fire Red and Leaf Green? Honestly, this is pretty shocking. Now, obviously, the original games did have some code from these games, but could this mean that they are planning to re-release this game? I think it does. Also, about 2 weeks ago, the Pokemon Company released this video right here in English this time. It was originally 1 year ago in Japan, but I find it funny why it took them this long. Maybe it's for pointers and context, because they know English fans like to really diagnostic all of these things to make one true image, because inside this video you'll realize that you're going to different regions, and potentially those different regions ended up being in Hoenn as well. Because you saw a Kyogre just swimming about its day, you also saw a whole bunch of fishies underwater, and you also saw Latios and Latias. Now these are two Pokemon that are famously associated to Ruby and Sapphire. Now, not only that, but also, if you remember, one of the big selling points of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald is where you can take your adventure above sea, under the water. It wasn't fully under the water, but the point is, you still were able to explore the ocean in a Pokemon game. And it did it once again in 2014 with the re-release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. That was still one of the big things that, hey, you can go and see underwater, you can catch fish here, you can go over there and do a whole bunch of stuff. Overall, I think that this is definitely all really interesting things. This might not mean much to you, but I'm still trying to prove my point here. It definitely is looking to be really interesting. I thought all of these things throughout my research of Pokemon, finding every nook and cranny, was honestly going well. I think that I've been slowly convincing myself that, yeah, these games are returning. Okay, so if we take a look at this right here, every single year, I tell you, go look at a year and you'll see a Pokemon game at the end of the year. So far, that is not the case, but in fact, we got Pokemon cards that are probably going to be scalped off the shelf. Fun fact, apparently the Pokemon Company printed 10 billion of these cards last year. I don't see 10 billion, they're completely gone. So potentially, this is what they're going to be doing a game for those who can't get their hands on the Pokemon product. Plus, they do one every single year, so I honestly believe that this is where we're going. We are going to be seeing these games return, depending if they do something like they did with Fire Red and Leaf Green, or release some sort of classic collection for GBA games that would be actually on the cartridge, would honestly be fantastic. Because for those of you who want to collect the entire sort of Pokedex, that would be completely up to you, and you have every single game. You would have Ruby, Sapphire, let's just say Emerald sold separately or something, but maybe it is Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and then Fire Red and Leaf Green. This is all fantastic. Okay, so now if we look at the recent posts, Now, the recent post might not have anything to do with Pokemon Generation 3, but you know what it does? It does have something to do with Pokemon Red and Blue. Now, this is honestly a key point. But if I was just looking into this, there is a bike shop instead of Ruby and Sapphire, so potentially this is what they're pointing to, like the bike shop, but instead it's red, gray, and whatever the case may be. Overall, I think that this right here is really, really cool. Also, I wanted to mention that they've been putting so many posts over the 30th anniversary. Now, we can't just keep looking at this and saying, yep, for sure, these are coming back, yep, we've never been wrong before, but I honestly believe that they're just pointing into something. It just makes so much sense. Okay, then we also have a post right here that might lead everything into a kaput or a blown up state. But if we take a look at it, they've also been posting a lot on Johto. So either this is because, hey, all of these games are going to be returning, which I honestly believe that that's going to be, or the contrary, they just doing this because, hey, it's the 30th anniversary. I guess we're going to have to see if they make another post. Oh, this is Sinnoh, because we know we already have the Sinnoh region, so what would be the point? Unless they release the original DS versions or they're about to do Platinum. That's the only way, that's the only reason why I see them do Sinnoh. Or just to say, hey, Sinnoh, it's been the whole birthday or something. When did Sinnoh release again? Oh, September. Still, this does make sense. Overall, I think these games are going to be returning. And also, if we look at it, Johto could very easily be returning, or even all the games. Because there's been so much talk about how are they going to do this double screen? How are they going to do it? Well, first off, Nintendo was planning some patent. Half the time they do the patent doesn't mean that they actually use it, but this one's definitely really interesting. How you could do it is flip the screen upside down or flip the Switch, because we know that the Nintendo Switch actually does support being flipped upside down. So you would take that, put that there, and there you go. Because you already have these like two little holes that potentially that is, oh, you put the screen in, it secures the screen, and there you go. Plus, you aren't going to be like blocking the airflow for your device, and you can continue playing like that. The other option is to be using like an app on your phone. Like you use a Nintendo Switch app that has another app that's like, I don't know, Poke Device or something like that. And then all of a sudden, you could play on that second screen. Now that might not be the most comfortable way in the world, but technically, they could have one of those sort of cranks that you pull apart and you put your phone in the middle and then you put it on top of your controller. That definitely would work in a lot of ways, and I think it would be great. It'd kind of be like a Joy-Con 2 grip where you put the phone in the middle and then you can tap the buttons holding that controller. Works in a lot of ways. Another way they can do it is just adding like a second screen for your other Switch, and there you go, you can work it like that. Second screens would work, but that's not really the main premise. I just wanted to tell you that yes, these games are probably going to be returning at some point. But overall, I hope that I convinced you a bit that these games are going to be returning. It honestly makes the most sense to me. Why wouldn't they re-release these games? Because if they really wanted money, since they do, and they wanted to get packed up and geared up after the harsh development of Pokemon Winds and Waves, well then obviously they would take these games out of the storage closet and throw them back on the Switch. Oh, it's just something that makes sense. Overall, are you excited for these Pokemon games to actually be returning? Grabbing your phone, chanting hooray, and you're gonna be doing the boogie after these games get announced. Or you don't care half as much because you don't like digital games. Honestly, I'm kind of split and torn in that direction. I hate digital games, but I would love to see Emerald return. So, I don't know, it's kind of like a balance scale, up or down, don't know how it goes. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope that you enjoy. Consider that like button, maybe subscribing if you're new. We do a bunch of different Nintendo content on the channel, not purely specifically Pokemon, so if you're just here for just Pokemon every single day, well, we'll get a new Pokemon video every single Saturday. So, anyways, see you in the next one.